Esparza and myself. So let's get started.
I'm gonna call roll because I have to.
Oh, so, I can't just say that? Okay.
No, it needs to be a roll call. Esparza?
Here.
Arenas?
She's on mute.
Here.
Yep. Peralez? Davis?
Here. Thank you. All right. So the second item is review of work plan. There's a recommended deferral. Do we need a motion for that recommended deferral, or can we just move along?
Yes, Councilmember, you need a motion.
Okay.
I'll move.
Motion to defer. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was just going to say, move to defer the Clean Energy Community Advisory Commission item.
Second.
Thank you. Tony, would you like to take roll for the vote?
Esparza?
Yes.
Arenas?
Yes.
I still have Dieppe absent and Peralez absent. Davis?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, so that item has been deferred. And the consent calendar. Downtown Parking Board annual report and work plan for the upcoming year. We have a member of the public who would like to speak on the consent calendar, I'm guessing.
Hi, thank you. Blair Beekman, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. I wrote you guys a memo about a half hour ago that when an item is deferred and it hasn't been on a committee or a city council agenda yet, or hasn't been presented, for the first time, when it's deferred, I think you have to have public comment on that item still. I don't think you can just simply give a motion and defer it. You have to allow public comment, and that's for legal talk at another time to consider. For this item, you'll be considering ideas of tech that can be placed into a parking garage system that hopefully can somehow, or systems that can serve, the Sharks Arena in some way, and for the future. And I suppose it's time, I every once in a while, I like to talk about the great work of the VTA that really wants to address ALPR issues in their BART parking lot. And I'm suppose you're going to be dealing with tech issues in the future and, within your parking lots. And, to have open public policies, just to state once again, it's always important. I'm trying to figure out new ways to say, every time you think of tech ideas for projects, always keep in mind, the civil rights and civil protection ideas that need to come with the tech itself. And the two just have to work hand in hand in the future. And we have new ways, responsible ways that allows the public, to really be involved with the process, which should be an enjoyable concept and not a chore and not a threat to city government that you tend to think of it as. So I wish you luck in how we develop open public policy practices and just good ideas to invite the community along so they can be a part of the ALPR process and they can be a part of the process in decision making about what data, how long city governments keep data for. It was 6 months, 8 months, a year ago. It could be down to 3 months.
Thank you. Is there a motion on the consent calendar?
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you. And it looks like Councilmember Dieppe has joined us. Tony, can we have a roll call vote?
Esparza?
Yes.
Arenas?
Yes.
Dieppe?
Aye.
Peralez absent and Davis?
Aye.
Thank you.
That motion carries, and we will turn to reports to committee. The first item, D1, is the San Jose Santa Clara Regional Wastewater Facility Capital Improvement Program Semi-Annual Status Report. I'm guessing, Carrie, are you going to kick it off or Nap? Nap's unmuted. I'm guessing it's Nap.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Davis. Good guess. Thank you, committee. So today our team would like to go over present our semi-annual CIP report You may recall, since it's semi-annual, we were supposed to be here back in February, but that meeting was canceled. So there's a lot of activity going out there today. So please be wary that our presentation might be a little longer than normal, but we will be very concise. There's a lot of activity today to present is our Deputy Director of the program, Mariana Chavez Vasquez, Division Manager Dave Olson, as well as Principal Engineer from Public Works, who manages the construction management team out there, Norm Mascarenas. Mariana?
Hi, let me just unmute myself. Hi, good afternoon. We are presenting today a report on the last year of work for our capital program. My name is Mariana Chavez. I'm the Deputy Director over the facility. I am going to just remind you, maybe we can go to the next slide, a little bit about our program. We are the largest capital program in the city. We have just concluded our 6th year on a 10-year program at roughly 1.4 billion. So in the last fiscal year, we have committed about 800 million already for the planning, design, and construction of critical rehabilitation projects at the facility. So in the last fiscal year, we had a budget of around 528 million. So this has been in the last reporting period of the year. We have 19 projects active around different stages in project delivery. So for the next few slides, David Olson, our program manager and division manager for capital program, will be sharing some of the details on the program. And we're also gonna be highlighting a little bit on the construction activities for some of the large projects, and Norm Mascarenas from Public Works will be helping us with that. So for the next slide, I'll transition to David. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mariana. As Mariana mentioned, I'm David Olson, Division Manager with ESD. So for our significant program activities, in February, staff finalized the biosolids procurement strategy and implementation plan. The plan recommended a short-term strategy of procuring contracts for hauling and disposing of biosolids processed by the future dewatering facility at the plant, and a longer-term strategy potentially consisting of a combination of a partner facility, city farm, and or long-term hauling disposition contracts. Staff has begun the procurement and environmental review process for the short-term contracts. This past fall, staff completed the construction management readiness assessment. The objective of this assessment was to evaluate the current construction management program and identify any improvements needed to effectively manage the increased number of projects in construction at the plant. Over the past year, staff has implemented a number of these recommendations, including implementing updated processes and procedures, hiring an experienced consultant deputy principal construction manager, adding interim cost and scheduling resources, training city staff on best practices and new procedures, and procuring additional third-party construction management and controls resources. At a program level, we continue to focus on recruitment and retention. During the second half of this fiscal year, we filled 7 of our vacancies, including a new principal engineer position to oversee our facilities projects. As mentioned earlier, we had 19 active projects during the second half of last fiscal year. This chart shows the 16 projects that are being delivered using the traditional design bid build delivery method. The projects highlighted in green were the ones that advanced a stage during our stage in our project delivery model during this reporting period. Our other 3 projects are being delivered using the progressive design build approach. During this period, our Headworks project, one of our largest projects in the program, began construction. In summary, we had 4 projects in feasibility, 6 in design, and 9 in construction. Of the 4 projects in feasibility, we continue to scope 2 of those projects, final effluent pump station and flood protection. We completed the alternatives analysis and began conceptual design for our storm drain system improvements project. And we also completed the conceptual design for our facility-wide water systems project pictured here. We finalized the bid documents for an exploratory trenching contract that will help us locate utilities and pipelines to better inform the project's design. During this period, we took another look at the delivery method for our 3 low bid design build projects. fire life safety, HVAC improvements, and outfall channel, and determined that it would be more expeditious if we were to deliver them as traditional design bid build projects. All 3 projects are now in detailed design. For the yard piping improvements phase 1 project, we completed the conceptual and preliminary designs. For dewatering, we conducted several design workshops with the design builder and RWF staff. We also tested a number of centrifuges and visited other facilities to help establish performance standards for the new facility. The design builder also submitted the basis of design report. And finally, for the filter rehabilitation project, we completed the final design during this period. We also advertised the project in March, opened bids in June, and we will be recommending construction award of that project to TPAC and Council this month. Now I will hand it over to Norm to share the construction highlights.
Thank you, David. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Norm Mascarinas, the principal engineer overseeing the construction management at the regional wastewater facility. I'll be sharing with you some of the highlights from the construction activities that occurred in the facility during the second half of fiscal year 1920. Go ahead, David. You can go through the projects. That's fine. As you can see from the graphic, we had 9 projects in various stages of construction dispersed throughout the facility. Therefore, the CM readiness assessment, which David discussed earlier, was critical. On this graphic, you'll notice that the project sites often overlap, and as a result, a lot of the effort is done to coordinate construction activities to ensure safety, minimize conflicts, as well as avoid construction delays. Next slide. The first project I'd like to highlight is the 96-inch and 87-inch settled sewage pipe rehabilitation project. This project scope is made up of 2 pipe segments, the first being the 96-inch pipe, and the second being the elliptical or oval pipe with dimensions of 87-inch by 136. Together, these pipe segments are part of the settled sewage system and are critical pipelines at the RWF. They convey primary effluent to the settled sewage pump station. Then the flow is distributed to the secondary treatment process for further treatment. A condition assessment on the pipes was conducted in 2017 and 2018 and confirmed crown corrosion in sections of the pipes for both the 96-inch and the large oval pipeline. Next slide, please. As part of the rehabilitation process, for these pipes, the segments must be cleaned and free of debris. The photo on the left shows a Vector truck being used to remove sludge and debris from the oval pipeline. The photo on the right, you see the contractor staff lowering a remotely operated vehicle, that's ROV, into the oval pipeline. The ROV is outfitted with a camera. This is typically done after the pipe has been cleaned to inspect the pipeline prior to rehabilitation. Significant progress has been made on this project and is expected to achieve beneficial use before the end of the calendar year. Next slide, please. The next project I'd like to highlight is the Advanced Facilities Control Meter Replacement Project. This is phase 1 of a 2-phase project. The scope of this project includes replacement and upgrades of control equipment, such as flow meters, valves, actuators, and sensors, with the work being done in the 2 areas delineated on this map. That's the secondary battery B, which is the top shaded area, and the nitrification battery B, which is the bottom shaded area. Go ahead, next slide, please. These photos show the contractor in the process of testing various equipment in the presence of the project inspector. In this reporting period, the contractor completed functional testing on various equipment installed on the secondary B side, with the next step being continuing on to operational testing. On the nitrification battery B side, the contractor has started the demolition of the pipes in the B side tunnels. Staff is coordinating the testing, startup, and commissioning activities with the contractor. This project is anticipated to achieve beneficial use in the spring of 2021. Next slide, please. Next project to highlight is the Blowers Improvement Project. This project will rehabilitate the RWF aeration blowers. They include 3 electric blowers in building 40, 6 engine-driven blowers in the secondary blower building, 5 electric blowers in the tertiary blower building. This includes mechanical and electrical upgrades and decommissioning of some of the older equipment. This project will also improve the operational and reliability of the aeration blower system here at the RWF. Next slide, please. During this reporting period, construction work occurred in 2 main areas of the RWF. In Building 40, the contractor worked to complete the new electrical room, which houses a lot of the electrical equipment, including the variable frequency drives or VFDs, which is a critical electrical component of the blower system. They also performed some lead paint abatement on the blower motor skids and skid bases, as shown in the photos. The picture on the left is the sandblasting operation used to remove the existing paint. And the picture on the right is the newly painted blower skid and framing. In the tertiary blower building, the contractor completed demolition and asbestos remediation work in the bag houses, poured new pads for electrical switchgear equipment, and installed an electrical motor for one of the TBB blowers. So a lot of work is going on. Next slide, please. Continuing on with the blowers, this photo shows a newly installed electric motor for one of the blowers located in Building 40. I believe this is PAB2. Through June 2020, construction was approximately 47% complete, with beneficial use for this project expected in fall of 2022. Next slide, please. Next project is the Cogeneration project. The scope of this project includes the installation of 4 new engines or generators, which is used to create the electricity for the RWF, as well as the gas treatment and blending areas, electrical connections and new gas pipelines, heating and cooling and loop connections, and the construction of a new power and air operations center, or we call it the PAOC building. Next slide, please. A lot of progress has been made during this reporting period, and we have a short video clip to show the progress. So you see the PAOC building on the left, followed by the building 45, and this is where the main generators are. The 4 generators are being housed. And then next structure would be the electrical building, and the last facility on the end is the gas treatment system. With respect to progress, the design builder continued to perform finishing work on the PAOC building, such as painting and interior finishes. In the main generator building, work continues on piping, mechanical and electrical equipment installation. In addition, the design builder performed functional testing on various pieces of the equipment, including the cooling towers, HVAC systems, the hot water loop system, as well as the gas treatment system. Continuing, next slide, please. This photo is from inside Building 45, or the main generator building. The picture on the left shows the gas blending skid tied to one of the generators, and the picture on the right shows one of the large engine generators, comparable size of about like a locomotive engine. This gas blending skid will combine natural gas with digester gas that is used to run the engine generators. Next slide, please. Continuing on with the Cogen project, this photo shows the gas treatment system. The purpose of this system is to remove siloxane and hydrogen sulfide from the digester gas before it's piped into the generators. In June, the contractor started up the gas treatment skid as part of the startup process. And through June, construction was approximately 89% complete, with an anticipated beneficial date coming at the end of the calendar year. Alrighty, next slide, please. Next project is the digester and thickener facilities upgrade project. If you recall, the scope of this project includes the rehabilitation of 4 anaerobic digesters, upgrades to existing dissolved air flotation tanks, or the DAFT units, installation of odor control, construction of a new sludge screening building, and a new gas piping system. Next slide, please. So we have a short video clip to show construction progress. So here you see the 4 new thermophilic digesters. The contractor installed the installation in the digesters, continue with conduit and wiring, as well as heat exchangers installed around the digesters. The contractor also installed the pipe rack main columns. As a reminder, the gas pipelines are being removed from the tunnels onto the elevated pipe racks to improve personnel safety. The pipe rack is used to convey digester gas, hot water supply and returns, as well as natural gas. The pipe rack runs along C Street, and then on the left, you'll see the Y structure. And then we will make a right turn on Main Street. And then on the right, you will see the DAFT tanks with the sludge pump canopy. And then following the pipe rack eventually leads to, on the right is the new sludge control building. And then right behind that is the odor control. And so the pipe rack continues through the SBB, or the secondary blower building, and eventually ties into the cogeneration project. Next slide, please. So continuing on in the digesters theme, the project shows the new covers of the DAFT tanks and the foul air piping systems. So the piping system takes the foul air to the biofilters where it's scrubbed as a means for odor control. Through June, construction on the project was about 90% complete. Beneficial use is anticipated sometime in fall 2021. Next slide, please. Moving on to the Headworks project. The scope of this project will be to replace the aging and deteriorating Headworks 1 with the new Headworks 3 project and make improvements to the existing Headworks 2 to ensure long-term operation and reliability. Next slide, please. The NTP for this project was issued in March of this year. A lot of preliminary site work was done during the reporting period. It includes site preparation activities such as installing stormwater pollution prevention plan measures, restrictive fencing for habitat, trenching operations for temporary electrical and fiber optic connections, excavation for tower crane foundation and installation of a tower crane base, which includes a significant amount of reinforcing steel and concrete. The picture on the left shows the start of the excavation for the tower crane, and the picture on the right shows the first thin slab pour for the base of the tower crane. Next slide, please. Continuing on with the Headworks project, construction activities started in June and included relocation of existing pipelines, installation of temporary power and fiber optics, grubbing of the site, so essentially removing some of the existing vegetation, as well as creating a solids disposal area. This picture shows the temporary electrical duct bank reroute. So in the background, you can see the excavator digging the trench for the duct bank. This project has made significant progress and will continue to provide updates in the future. Again, beneficial use of this design build project is anticipated in summer 2023. Moving on to next slide, nitrification. The nitrification clarifiers rehabilitation phase 1 project. This is the first phase of another 2-phase project. The scope of phase 1 is to replace the mechanisms and related equipment for the 8 clarifiers, rehabilitate up to 8 return activated sludge or RAS pipelines, replace drain and return activated sludge valves serving the A and B sides, rehabilitate groundwater pressure relief valves, replace electrical and instrument and control equipment for all 16 clarifiers, and lastly, install groundwater monitoring wells. Next slide, please. For majority of this work, during the reporting period, construction management staff reviewed contractor submittals, RFIs, requests for information on equipment and instrumentation, work plans, and process shutdown requests. In June, the contractor started draining clarifiers B8 for groundwater, constructing temporary access for clarifiers B8 and B6, and trenching for electrical conduits. This aerial photo just shows the 8 B-side clarifiers in the background, and then the 8 A-side clarifiers in the foreground. The beneficial use date for this project is anticipated for fall 2022. So this concludes the construction highlights, and I'll hand it back to David to wrap up the presentation. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Norm. Looking at the next 6-month period, we'll be advertising the yard piping phase 1 project for bid. We'll be returning to council later this month to recommend award of the filter rehab project, and we'll start construction on 2 projects, the advanced facility control and meter replacement phase 2 project and filter rehab. And for the program, last month, council awarded new construction management agreements. Next month, staff will be returning to recommend award of new construction management controls agreements to support projects in construction. We will continue to implement the construction management and testing, startup, and commissioning strategies, and continue to fill our remaining vacancies. And that concludes our presentation, and we're available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Knapp, Mariana, David, and Norm. That was a very comprehensive report. I appreciate that. We do have one member of the public who would like to speak, so we'll go to them before we turn to my colleagues for their questions. Blair?
Hi, these gave me the power to unmute, and thank you. So here I am. Yeah, that was a nice word. It was a very comprehensive report. Thank you. It was nice just to sit back and listen to, you know, the makings of our city. So thank you. I know that David Wall, who used to be kind of he was another regular of the everyday community like myself, who would attend rules and open government meetings for years, up until about 2016, when he moved up north. And, you know, he would, and the many subjects he would talk about, he would often return to the subjects that were talked about here today. And he had a really in-depth knowledge about how to, you know, help and add different ideas to the wastewater management plant ideas that were, you know, unique. They may not have been always been the greatest in the world, but I think he used to, that's where he used to work. And so he had a very good knowledge, and it was nice. You know, it just simply gave a real good reference point for this sort of work. And I'm interested if you're still in touch with him and he writes you letters about these sort of things, and perhaps I can give a formal call out to him over the airwaves here. And, you know, hopefully he can look into this stuff and add his 2 cents. And, you know, it's every little bit of, you know, advice can be of help to you. And you offered that with this presentation. So thank you. Good luck in what these things can do. And thanks for your time.
Thank you. Turning to my colleagues, does anyone have questions for the team? Comments?
No questions, but I'll move approval.
Second.
Thank you. I just have a couple of questions. One is about the biosolids.
Second.
Thank you. We've got a motion in a couple of seconds. I think it's going to pass, you guys. The biosolids disposition, the long-term strategy, what's the timeline for determining which of the options you're going to go with? So I know you had talked about either a partner facility, potentially a city facility, I think you might have mentioned, and or long-term service contracts. What's the timeline for figuring out kind of the long-term, and what's the duration of the short-term contracts going to be?
Nap, you want me to answer?
Sure, Mariana, go ahead.
Okay, so thank you for the question. So we are in the process of determining all that, but I start kind of giving you an advance of what we're doing. So we have already started talking with different people that have interest in partnerships. So there is interest. However, I think that's going to take a little longer to develop because of the timeline when we need to implement. So we have already a number of kind of short-term contracts that we're looking into, and we're actually working on putting those procurement documents together in the next year. And that will be just like a short-term for the first 3, maybe 5 years. So we have a way to get all our biosolids to a place that can take them for reusable purposes. And in the meantime, we're still planning on developing potential partnerships. And that we're still in the discussions of whether that would be a local facility closer to the treatment plant or somewhere in the vicinity. So we are planning basically on all of that, but the contracts will come first just because of the timeline of the project.
So, and this is because we can't take the biosolids to the landfill anymore, right? Is that right?
So Marianne, if I could just help out with that. So there's a couple of things. We had Council on TPAC direction to change the way we handled biosolids. And so that was sort of our first priority. There also happens to be legislation that changes our ability to send them to Newbie Island anymore. So as Mariana said, we want to have the right long-term plan, but we need a short-term gap filler. So we're looking at those contracts to fill it in the short term so that we can get to the right long-term facility. We don't really want to be trucking biosolids. Mariana, how many trucks a day would that be?
Around 45 trucks a day.
Every day. And so we really want to see if we can come up with something better. But obviously we have an urgent need.
Right. So I understand. So I think what I heard you say, Mariana, is that the short-term contracts will be kind of in the 3 to 5 year time frame.
Yeah, starting in 2023.
2023. Okay, thank you. That's helpful. So even before the short-term contracts start, we have kind of some runway in terms of figuring out kind of what where we need to head for the long term.
Yes.
I appreciate the timeline. And then the only other question I had was about the recruitment. I saw there were 7 newly filled positions and 13 open. I think it said open as of July. Have we been able to add new positions since then? Or is it
So
kind of
we definitely are challenged to hire people with wastewater experience. And so we're working with the Human Resources Department to figure out a long-term solution. The wastewater is kind of a niche area, and we don't have challenges with the entry-level folks, but the staff with experience, which is really what we need. So Mariana and Nap and I are working closely with the manager's office to figure out how do we sort of resolve this.
Okay. So that's still kind of an ongoing issue. I know we've talked about that at TPAC a few times as well. All right. Thank you. Seeing no other questions from my colleagues, Tony, can we take a vote?
Esparza,
Yes.
Arenas,
Yes.
Dieppe,
Aye.
Peralez,
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. That motion carries. And we will move on to the Climate Smart San Jose Plan, the semi-annual update. And
Thank you. I'll start. Great. Thanks, Ken, for getting the slides up. You know, we're really happy to be here today to highlight the critical climate work that our team and really citywide departments have maintained during the pandemic and an otherwise crazy year. So today I'm joined with Ken Davies, the ESD Climate Smart Deputy Director, and Ramses Mado, Division Manager with the Department of Transportation. You know, despite everything that 2020 has thrown at us, we're reminded on a daily basis that climate change is real, global warming is happening, and that our mission is really as important as ever. So this is what we view probably the most important project of our lifetime. Next slide. So today is our 5th semi-annual update on Climate Smart. And as we go into the presentation, we'll remind you of the things we remind you of almost every time, which is that cities play a critical role in our nation's economic development and in climate action. 90% of GDP and 86% of US jobs are generated in 3% of the continental US, mostly in our cities. 2/3 of the world's energy is consumed by cities, and 70% of global GHG emissions are produced in cities. And as the 10th largest city in the United States, San Jose has an important and leading role to play in the fight against climate change. So with that, today we'll give a quick background on Climate Smart. We'll talk about how we're engaging the community during COVID, cover the city's own climate progress and operation of our facilities, take a deeper dive on some of the transportation initiatives, and give an update on the work plan's progress since the adoption of the plan. Next slide. As hopefully you will recall, in February 2018, the city of San Jose was one of the first US cities to adopt a Paris-aligned climate action plan, and that's our Climate Smart San Jose plan. The plan puts forth bold climate actions to drastically increase our community's energy efficiency and investment in renewable energy, and while promoting cultural and diverse neighborhoods. The plan brings together all of our city departments, related agencies, private sector, and ultimately our residents and community groups to change how our city works and pivot from one that is city-centric to one that is people-focused. So this plan, unlike the prior report is all work city is doing in-house. The change for climate is going to happen outside of City Hall. And so that's the behavior change and adoption we're moving to drive right now. Slide 4. This slide is our key framings for the plan. It's centered around people, where the city serves as a catalyst for action outside of City Hall in the community plan. There's the public input into the plan was very significant, and it's ongoing, and we're focused on improving the quality of life for our community and the environment. It's implementation ready, so we have deep alignment with our general plan and the city's environmental goals. It's inclusive, and it's enabled by the Good Life 2.0, and it's informed by data. There's cost-benefit modeling for all of the components. Next slide. The plan has 3 pillars and 9 strategies, all with bold goals. We work towards creating a city that is sustainable and climate smart, connected and growth focused, economically inclusive. And these all also, again, improve our quality of life, and they're noted there. Next slide. In the absence of federal climate leadership, the city and community came together to support the principles of the Paris Agreement and to develop a plan that charts the best pathway for keeping global temperature rise this century below 2 degrees Celsius. At this time, San Jose is still a growing city, though, so our plan must provide a framework for urban and economic growth while reducing greenhouse gas emissions. A few of the goals that we highlight as our bold goals is by 2020, all new homes will be zero net carbon. And we achieved this through our REACH code, and we'll bring an expanded gas ban back to council next month. By 2030, 60% of all passenger vehicles will be electric. People are already electrifying in our community. There's over 13,500 plug-in and EV electrics in the South Bay. And the governor's new mandate only enhances that momentum. By 2040, we'll be the world's first 1 gigawatt city. And by 2040, 4 out of 10 commute trips will be taken in single occupancy vehicles. And Ramses is going to share with us more how we can achieve this and also progress that he and the DOT team have made. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ken.
Thanks, Gary. In addition to overarching climate smart community engagement, the city made progress on its own action plan. It's a 30-year plan, so there's still a long journey ahead in order to meet our climate smart goals through 2050. But there is also clear ongoing commitment by the city council and staff to our success. I'll cover a few key initiatives arranged by the plan's core pillars that are representative of the extensive and commendable actions that various city departments are taking to bring the short and long-term climate smart goals to reality. So during this pandemic, one of the things that has changed quite a bit has been the way we engage with the community. Featured here are some of our virtual house parties that are promoting in 3 languages our Climate Smart Challenge platform that we'll cover later in the presentation. We also have had online presentations on financial counseling relative to purchase of electric vehicles, how to get financing, how to maintain credit, other things like that that are included. And one of our success stories, a local family that was able to take advantage of the dealer discounts that are being offered in San Jose and getting to enjoy those lowered operational expenses that come with EVs. Pillar 1, climate smart, a sustainable and climate smart city. As we strive to reach our own electric vehicle goals and now those of the governor, one area of needed attention is the charging infrastructure to get all of those and keep all those electric vehicles charged. Our recent REACH code on new construction mandates some of that, but a huge piece of that will come from Cal EVIP, which I'm sure will be covered in the next presentation in depth. But that leveraged millions of state dollars against some matching funds locally to get more charging stations put out there. Building electrification, it's hard to believe our building electrification REACH code is now almost a year old. So happy birthday, REACH code. Our interdepartmental team was really proud to be recognized by SPUR last spring, but we're not done yet. And as Carrie mentioned, we'll be returning to council next month with an expansion, proposed expansion of that gas ban. Natural working lands, we are working on a couple new elements to Climate Smart. Climate Smart Phase 2 will include a natural and working lands analysis, which will research the interplay between natural and working lands and community-wide GHG emissions. And the zero waste element will take an updated look at our solid waste and recycling streams to see where we can improve the Good Life 2.0 while lowering GHG emissions from that sector. And then our 2018 municipal greenhouse gas inventory was also recently completed. So we'll take a look at that right here. The attachment to today's staff report is the complete inventory, which provides helpful detail on the historic setting and differences in methodologies. We had not done a municipal facility inventory for over 8 years. Key findings, generally going in the right direction, and emissions reduction of 10% from our 2010 baseline year, driven by building and lighting efficiency improvements, as well as lowered emissions by muni water. For the first time, thanks to a completed street tree inventory, we were able to quantify the amount of carbon that trees can sequester for us and help us reduce our emissions. We did notice a gain in employee commute related emissions. So we're looking at that as maybe being caused by folks having to move farther out and drive farther in and that kind of thing. And then just perspective that, as you saw in the last presentation, treating wastewater to very high standards for about half the county certainly requires a lot of energy and upgrades to that facility. Pillar 2, transportation access and mobility plan, working very hard on that plan, and Ramses will be covering that shortly. Parking management and pricing. The city committed to the recently extended, in case you haven't heard, our American Cities Climate Challenge will now go through June of next year, so we're excited about that. And it'll give us a chance to finish up on the parking policy adjustments that we're looking at and keeping them consistent with our climate smart goals and Envision 2040. So we'll continue on that effort to partner with SPUR, the Urban Land Institute, and Nelson Nygaard into next year to comprehensively evaluate and pursue updated parking requirements for new development, to design a parking strategy that will enable no and low parking development, particularly around transit. Based on that strategy, which will include a broad range of stakeholder input, we'll develop end products that will modernize parking requirements and accelerate the adoption of multimodal solutions we need to drive GHG down. Drive Electric San Jose, still available till the end of this month. So if you are in the market for an EV, now is the time to act. I know a guy who knows a guy. We can get you connected, and the discounts are piled on top of existing state and federal incentives, and it can total up to $13,000 in savings. We're also working with our American Cities partners to find ways to expand those discounts to the used EV market in order to make those vehicles even more approachable for all communities. And to that end, Drive Forward EV counseling helps low and moderate income families understand the incentives and cost savings that come with EV ownership. And the city has partnered with Peninsula Family Services to teach residents about ways to finance these vehicles, and training is also available in 3 languages to cover financial education topics like credit, budgeting, and money management. In terms of EV charge points, Public Works and DOT have been collaborating with PG&E to install charge points for electric vehicles that would be available for the public, city employees, and the city fleet. And we're hoping to begin construction on that now next year. That's been delayed a little bit because of the pandemic. With that, I'll pass it along to Ramses to take a deeper dive on transportation.
All right, good afternoon, Chairwoman and Committee. Ramses Madhu, Division Manager of Planning Policy and Sustainability in DOT. We'll talk about a few of the different work items. You guys have seen many of these before, but just kind of putting them in context here in the climate work. With transportation taking up roughly 63 or 4% of the overall emissions that can be attributed to activity in San Jose, and then as you saw, a growing portion of the emissions directly related to San Jose. Finding ways for people to get around that are not based in the car are really important. One of the most impactful things that will probably happen in the next few years is the passage of the Better Bike Plan, which will actually be going to full council tomorrow night. So we're really excited about this plan. It's one of the major pieces of us all trying to meet these really ambitious mode split goals that should get us there. Yeah, let's go to the next slide. We are, of course, also continuing our annual programs and really bringing in some innovative thinking and world-class thinkers to help us get there. So this year, this is our kind of big bike projects list. You can see you're getting over Highway 101 with San Antonio Road. We're doing road diets or other major treatments on the rest of these. And the one we'd really like to highlight here is 10th and 11th, just outside of City Hall here. We're doing what's called a frontage lane with protected intersections, right? And so this is a pretty innovative approach that gives the local folks who live on the street a lot of protection and slows the traffic down for them, and in effect creates these tiny little, you could almost call them cul-de-sacs for the people who live on the side of the street, but then at the intersections, only bikes can get to the corners, so cars will have to get in and out of these little frontage lanes. And we think this is a really great approach to a road that's used at much higher speeds than it should be and carries a lot of traffic, but also is a major bike north-south connector. So we're really proud of this. We worked with NACTO, which is a National Association of City Transportation Officials, and brought together folks from across the country to kind of try to solve this problem. Right? It's a pretty difficult one since we have all these single-family homes on either side. Next slide, please. All right, and then of course there's the Access and Mobility Plan. This is really our attempt to meet these goals. You know, we've been given the direction, we've been given the place to try to get to, but as the mayor's noted, what's our plan to actually get there, right? And so we've dug into this. We've actually brought this to you guys a couple times already. But again, this is the big one for us in terms of you know, a 10-year work plan for DOT in the city to really move transportation from its current you know, single occupancy vehicle focused system into a multimodal system. Do follow Move San Jose on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. This is kind of our persona in the digital world that's bringing forth this plan, as well as a lot of other plans, actually. And there's now a great website that's bringing most of our transportation planning efforts in one place, so people can kind of learn about them at once. Next slide, please. So as you guys know, what we've been able to do with the Access and Mobility Plan so far in phase one was, in a sense, get all of the things that council has told staff to do around policies set around transportation and bring them into one document so that we can kind of digest it, right? Because it's a pretty huge area. It's the most valuable in terms of money asset the city has, and also the biggest land holding the city has, right? And so this is the place where we can take the most action and do the most impactful things. So we really, you know, took a good period of meditation, of really a lot of reading and discussing how to understand what all of these directives were, and that produced the transportation directives, which we've talked to you about before. And we're currently now updating these in phase two. We have a consultant on board, as you know, to make them a little more approachable and more related to potential metrics that will help us guide the development and implementation of this plan. Next slide, please. So now we're really working on how do we get there, right? What are the ways that, what are the kinds of strategies that will work? I'm trying to understand what they will look like in different parts of the city. What's going to work in Cambria is not going to be the same thing as downtown or in certain parts of East San Jose, or yeah, there's a lot of diversity in the city in all kinds of different ways. So we're making sure to incorporate all of that. We're doing a lot of data collection and purchasing to really get our heads around the totality of the problem, right? Again, the diversity and size of our city is immense, and to be able to create strategies that work and make sense across the whole city is a pretty big task, and getting the data together is obviously such an important piece. We're also going through an organizational assessment. So we have, as part of our contract, work by the outside consultant to help us think through how to structure DOT in terms of workflows, in terms of even personnel structures, to see, are we lined up to meet these goals, and what ways could we improve to get there. And of course, we're also implementing this internally. We've expanded the telework program. I think that's a little bit by default. We appreciate that. Yeah, right. Take your wins when you can, right? And hopefully it continues on. And we've also proposed the role of a city TDM manager to help employees go forward with that. And I believe the Vice Mayor's office is quite supportive of that action. All right, so right now we're diving into the public outreach on this. We've got the Move San Jose handle online. And we have a survey out. If you haven't taken it already, please do. And I think most of your offices have pushed out language on this through newsletters and the like, but if you can help us continue, that'd be great. We're hoping to have the survey open for another about 2 weeks or so. We've got over 500 responses so far. And then we've already got our Equity Council set up for this effort, made up of community-based organizations like Luna and Chopstick Alley and the Assisted Living Center, as well as a citywide religious organization, PACT. So we're getting all the voices in we can, and trying to help us figure out how do we make this move together. Next slide. And Ken's already touched quite a bit on this. I'll just say a little bit more, right? We have the Drive Electric San Jose effort going on. We were able to get in with about 5 dealerships. Really great discounts. I know at least 3 people who have used them that really drive the price down of the electric vehicles out there. And we're currently slated to go to October 31st. Of course, we're talking about if we can get it extended or do it again. We shall see. And then, yeah, the last piece I'll touch here is this, the free EV financial counseling, which is, one of the biggest complaints about electric vehicles, as well as the governor's new executive order to make only electric vehicle sales, or sorry, only zero emissions vehicle sales after 2035, is the equity issue, right? Is at the moment, people see electric vehicles and they think Tesla. And so helping people access these, whether they be used or even some of the lower, the less expensive models out there, is a pretty important thing. And so just bringing that knowledge out to the public is an important piece of the puzzle. All right.
Thanks, Ramses. Finishing up with Pillar 3, an economically inclusive city of opportunity. We have developed a fantastic web platform to help guide residents in 3 languages on how to reduce their carbon footprint and energy costs. It's really fun to use, and I'm going to show you some examples of that on the next slide. San Jose was selected as one of 7 cities to host a Urban Sustainability Directors Network Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Fellow, which will help us build on the inclusive elements of Climate Smart. The fellow is going to help apply an equity lens to our climate programs and develop a climate and equity narrative. And then as it relates to energy cost burden, which is that portion of income that's spent on energy relative to the overall that some of our residents face, we had a really cool opportunity to engage with Santa Clara University on urban heat island mapping. So where we have lots of hardscape and not a lot of trees, we can get an urban heat island effect where peak temperatures reached in the mid-afternoon can keep neighborhood spots hot well into the evening because those heat absorbing masses are just radiating the heat out. This was a citizen science effort, so we had lots of volunteers. You can become a citizen scientist by driving the same 20-mile route 3 times the same day and never surpassing 35 miles an hour. So your heat measuring equipment functions correctly. But you can see some of the differences there in the kind of cool infrared photo showing the cool purple areas under the tree where it's shaded and the hotter oranges and yellows there out in the middle of the street. So the platform, you can do over 60 different actions when you sign in, join the challenge. It's got everything from really cheap and easy things to do to more substantial investment like an EV. You can sort your actions by their carbon imprint or impact. So it actually measures your actions in pounds of CO2 removed from the atmosphere. It can also look at it for you in terms of how much you're going to reduce your energy bill on a monthly basis. And you can also form teams and have friendly competitions between your block and your neighbor's block and that kind of thing. So we've been reaching out to lots of folks on that. And hope that everybody will continue to join the platform and make progress on that. And then in terms of our work plan update, we are actively pursuing right now the subsidized climate action fellows that are being supported at the state and federal level. So free of charge to the city. We're looking at a nice big cohort, and that application goes in the middle of October. So those will help us fill a few gaps and keep momentum going. And then we've got our term limited positions for Climate Smart still in place through the end of the American Cities Climate Challenge project at the end of June. I mentioned Bloomberg's been extended. We're also continuing to monitor and track as part of the technical working group meetings, available grant opportunities to ensure coordinated and timely grant applications, and working with the mayor's office on ways to go after foundation sources of funding. Lastly, our Climate Smart dashboard continues to develop. In addition to our 2018 municipal facility inventory, we're working on a 2019 community-wide inventory, which should be completed in the next couple months. And the dashboard here, like I said, just keeps expanding. There's a graph showing our municipal emissions over time, which is notable that those emissions kept dropping even with fluctuations in city staffing levels and a continued increase in citywide population. And with that, we will be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. We have one member of the public, it looks like, who would like to comment. So we'll do that before we turn to my colleagues. Blair?
Hi, thank you. For this item, I kind of wish Tessa was here today to speak on these things. I will try to hold the fort in what's Tessa's work on these things. You know, I've learned a lot from Tessa over the years, and one of her main points, I learned is that electric cars, for as good as that technology can be for our future, it's not the end all. It's a number of plans and ideas and ways to work. You know, I thank you much that you're working on pedestrian and bicycle trails at this time in San Jose, and the same with the VTA, and the same with the city of Fremont and other Bay Area cities. So, you know, good practices are on your mind. Thank you. What Carrie Romanoff first started with, you know, this has been a crazy year. It was nice of her to say that, you know. No one, I think, at the local level really wants to plan what some possible overall goals of COVID-19 may be. And we can all, you know, make up stories what that can be. And yet, I just think if we continue with our good practices that we were all thinking about pre-COVID-19, like what Tessa was saying, like what I was trying to add to, what you were working on with natural gas issues, for instance, and ending the use of natural gas, you know, we can still continue on our good ideas and our good track. And that's really important to me. And, you know, this has been a really good plan, and I thank you. I feel we're going to have to seriously address the future of nuclear and what we're getting as carbon-free nuclear power now. We're going to have to address, if not now, which I'd like to, we definitely do in a few years. So, you know, that and IoT was mentioned, data collection work was mentioned. Why not promote an open public policy that can develop harmony and unity for the community and people feel invited to the whole process? Thank you.
Thank you. I'm gonna make sure, okay. Councilmember Esparza.
Thank you. I just had a few questions. One of them was, I don't know if it's about energy capacity and generation. Given the governor's announcement and that we've been facing rolling shutoffs, how does what we're doing increase our capacity for the future as we're going to be using electricity more and more?
Councilmember, I see Lori Mitchell's on, and as our
Oh, there
energy
she is.
leader, Lori, if I could bounce that over to you.
Sure. No, happy to take that question. So it's really important, you know, as we know, in August, we faced rolling blackouts. They didn't actually happen in San Jose, but throughout the state, many people were impacted by them. Quite historic. We haven't had rolling blackouts since, you know, the energy crisis in the early 2000s. So it's definitely a historic event. You know, it was coupled with widespread heat across the West, which certainly is a result of climate change. So it's something that we need to continue to look at. So as the CCA, what we're doing is coordinating with the state, the commission, also the Energy Commission and the ISO to look at resource adequacy and look at other potential solutions for this. We definitely know that having more energy resources during that afternoon peak is very important. So things like battery technologies and the renewable contract that we sign that provides energy, a fixed amount throughout the day, are really important. We also know investing in additional wind, particularly out-of-state wind, could help us in this. So there's a number of initiatives that we're looking at and collaborating with the state on. I would say it's important to note also here in San Jose, what happened that weekend is that we had a large amount of distribution infrastructure failures, which was a very significant impact on our community. In total, almost 100,000 electric meters were impacted by distribution outages. So that's very significant. It's almost a quarter to a third of the city that was impacted in that, and, you know, had their power shut off for much longer than a rolling out. So that's another issue that we're tracking. There's going to be a hearing in the Senate to look into the rolling blackouts, but also these local distribution outages. And you know, definitely what we've communicated to PG&E is that it's really important for the infrastructure to be able to withstand the heat, and particularly in a pandemic where people don't have a lot of options and other places to go. So I think the city's response to it was very good. You know, there was a number of cooling centers opened and resources, but still not satisfactory for our residents.
Thank you. And I had a couple of issues that I wanted to highlight. So one of the things that we talked about when electric vehicles came to council last year was, you know, as people convert, as it becomes more affordable, what are the options? One of the things that really impacts working people is maintenance. So really delving into maintenance issue, it's a lot different. I know in District 7, a lot of people work on their own cars, and that plays into sort of that shift that we're all collectively making. And so I just wanted to highlight that issue as this becomes more and more real throughout our city. And that's I think it for energy. Similarly, Ramsey's, I think we had talked about this before in mode shift. I just wanted to, again, highlight the fact that some parts of the city are home to a lot of shift workers and a lot of folks in construction and things like that. And so there are portions of the population that frankly need access to cars to work, right? And don't have as much options or alternatives as others. And so I just didn't want to lose sight of that amidst some of the really exciting things in your presentation, which I am very much looking forward to seeing become reality. But I just wanted to highlight that because as we talk about equity, there's equity access to things like electric vehicle charging stations and all the things that we're working on. But there's also, like, frankly, the right to just earn a living and the fact that we as a city are dependent on that. So I wanted to highlight that as well. And lastly, I just wanted to say how cool it was to see the urban heat mapping. It's such a big issue. We just have wrapped up a month's intensive work on census where PRNS and District 5 and District 7 staff went out, did a lot of door-to-door canvassing. And it was kind of funny to see folks from other parts. We had county workers as well, and people from other parts of the city realized, because some of these days were pretty hot and smoky, that it's 10 to 15 degrees hotter in District 7. And so I think that I'm looking forward to all the canopy work that we have planned as a city. I think it's really needed. But some of that work is pretty cool because it's eye-opening for a lot of other folks, how we can literally change the landscape of our city and what that means for residents. So that was pretty cool. That's it for me, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Esparza. Councilmember Arenas?
Hey, I just had one question, and that was around how we are connecting the 32. I know that we've had the heat pump water rebate program. How are we connecting that with the CARE or FERA programs? Do we have any outreach connected to those folks already?
Yeah, we have. We're utilizing all those data sources to help get that out with a particular emphasis on low-income residents. And that grant just got extended too, so we've got another. Got through April, I believe, of next year.
I apologize. Can you repeat that?
Sure. We are utilizing the CARE and FERA databases that we have in conjunction with San Jose Clean Energy, and the grant through the Air District for those devices has been extended through, I believe, April of next year now.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I hope that there's something that we could also post on our social media for our residents, so that they can continue to take advantage of the water heater rebate program. So it would be wonderful if we can help post that as well. The last question I have is, and I think Councilmember Esparza already spoke about this, but we all noticed the increase of temperature in some of our neighborhoods, specifically closer to Capitol Expressway, closer to the east side. And I know that I have some of those neighborhoods as well. Is there any involvement with the elementary school districts to get the children and the parents and the families involved, maybe in the larger picture of planting, trees and flowers and things of that sort in their personal property, as well as maybe some of that education through our schools?
I know our partners in DOT are pursuing some of those climate action fellows through the state. And DOT, as you know, manages our street tree inventory and is busy mapping out locations that could use additional tree plantings. So I think that effort will be underway if we're successful in getting those, but I'd have to check in with DOT to see what they have in place right now.
Yeah, I apologize. I can't add any information to that discussion.
Thank you so much. I just look forward to additional information as it moves forward. But appreciate the presentation and the support. Thank you.
Councilmember Perales?
Yeah, hi, thank you, Chair. And I just wanted to say thank you as well for the presentation and the work thus far. I think we have certainly taken some great steps, especially over the last couple years. I know I had some family members close to me that were that were questioning and wondering why the city for new housing development was requiring all electric and no longer allowing gas, and they didn't quite understand my role, so I was able to shrug that one off. But but it was but no, actually it was a great conversation to be able to talk about some of these needs, because not everybody thinks about it, quite frankly. And I think we started a number of years ago internally looking at what the city could do ourselves with our own investments, our own infrastructure. But the reality is that we know that's a very, very small piece of the pie, and it's really about getting our residents, our community members to know about obviously the issues and the causes of climate change, and how we can actually make a difference, how we can reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, and branching it out, right, and creating these opportunities to educate people, get them excited about it, hopefully, and then make them a participant with us, because I think we have seen some great success within the city and what we're doing within our especially our own means, but now we need our residents and everybody else to get on board, and I do think some of these new tools, and it was exciting to kind of see the presentation with the website with the Climate Smart Challenge, that web platform, and just ways that we can continue to get community members to involve. So that's it. I just had some comments of appreciation, no questions for now. Thank you.
I also want to add my thanks for the update, and I learned a few things I didn't remember or didn't know that we did EV financial counseling. I think that's really cool. And the only question I have about that is, are we doing that ourselves, or did we, I can't remember what you said. Ken, I think you were the one talking about it. Do we have a group that we're working with that does this?
Yeah, that's Peninsula Family Services. They were performing that for a while up in the PCE service territory, but then through the American Cities Climate Challenge, we were able to get funding to bring those folks down to San Jose and help out here.
And do they have any, like the Climate Smart Challenge, do they have any online resources, maybe for people who don't feel like they need a class, but they might be interested in that?
We've got all the information and presentations posted on the website, but let me double check if that's always accessible.
Okay.
So for all the offerings have been, yeah, online webinars though.
Okay. And it's something that they can watch.
Sorry.
Is it something that people can watch at their... Go ahead, Ramses.
Sorry. Oh yeah, we've had city staff support those as well, including doing some of the sessions in Spanish to make sure that the information is as accessible as possible, and those things are recorded.
Okay. Great. So they can be watched on demand.
That's my understanding. Sounds like Ken and I are both slightly uneasy about saying absolutely.
But we do have a Vietnamese and English offering coming up this Saturday, I believe.
Okay, great. That's very cool. And then you had mentioned that the Drive Electric plan, we're looking for maybe the next iteration. It will also be available for used vehicles.
That's what we're working on through our partners in the challenge again. Yeah, we're working on how to apply that. I know DOT tried to do that this time through, but it was difficult for the dealers to apply something uniform to the used vehicle given varying conditions and that kind of thing.
Okay, and would that have to go through a dealership to purchase a used EV to get that?
Yeah, Ramses, you want to expand on that? I know.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know exactly, like, one, we're not going to sell cars ourselves, I don't think, right? That's probably not the role the city wants to take, and so we would work with, we'd work with dealers to try and set up a marketplace for them. And part of the problem is that the marketplace for secondhand EVs is it's almost non-existent. They seem to kind of go away into either other markets or are being recycled in different ways. So we just hired somebody on to fill the climate smart activity role in my team, and part of her focus is on how to help develop the secondhand market for EVs. And considering the governor's executive order around this, I think that it should see some acceleration pretty shortly here.
Okay, thank you. I know it's a little bit difficult because of the cost of the battery. Like, even if you're going to do battery replacement for an older car, I've only read a little bit on Mr. Roadshow and the Mercury News about that. Just because I have a 15-year-old daughter who's going on 16, and we have an older vehicle, and we may want to switch it out, but we're not going to buy a new electric vehicle for having two teens in the house, and a new car is not something that we want to do. So we've been kind of thinking about it a little bit, but I understand that it is a little bit difficult. There are Nissan Leafs available, is what it seems like.
Well, there's a glut of 2017 lease vehicles that have re-entered the market at this point on after their 3-year lease. I know because I've been looking, but check out used Chevy Bolts. They still have the huge battery range as opposed to some of the other ones.
Good tip, thank you.
You can at least get that $800 from PG&E rebate too.
Oh, even on a used vehicle purchase?
Yeah.
Good to know. This is very helpful. Thank you. And while we've been talking, Councilmember Depp raised his hand.
Yeah, sorry, I just had a quick question for Carrie. You mentioned San Jose is going to be the first, I want to say, gigawatt or kilowatt city. Could you, that isn't just real quick?
So our goal is for San Jose to be the first gigawatt city. And so that's something that we're working towards. And so that would be taking advantage of the many days of sunshine and our available rooftops. So part of our strategy is to continue to roll out and promote solar and other forms of renewable energy throughout the city. So that big, bold goals helps guide our work so that we continue to make progress in that area.
What I was trying to understand is what the definition of a gigawatt entails.
Ken, do you want to add? You look like you want to say something.
It's 1,000 megawatts, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so but basically the goal is that we will generate 1,000, so a gigawatt of energy. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, so for the solar installed within our city boundary, it would total up to a gigawatt. And so we just continue to move in that area. It's a very bold goal, and it's something that, we have some lead time on. And we're seeing uptake, though, in the community. And I know San Jose Community Energy and others in the city are really working towards continuing to make that an available option to our residents. And so I think as energy prices continue to increase, there'll be continued or expanded interest in people installing solar on their homes.
I certainly hope
that's public and private, Carrie, both what we generate and what the private sector and others generate.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. So all of our goals are for all of the city. There's not really separate ones for municipal operations. So our objectives are to help enable adoption by everyone.
Okay, understood. I was just looking for the definition. Thank you. I read somewhere, and it might be old information, but I could have sworn that in the state of California, we overgenerate solar and we try to sell it off to like neighboring states or something to that effect. I could be wrong, but I'm supportive of the goal, and I hope that the battery technology is there for us to be able to use that stored energy, and especially now if this is a new norm where we're getting cloudy skies because of wildfires around the area. I also know that that's lowering the energy generation of solar panels recently. So yeah. Anyways,
Yes.
thank you for that.
So yes, council member, we cannot achieve that goal if battery storage, if energy storage doesn't expand. And we know that. And so that's part of what we need to do to ensure that that's reasonable and that we can improve the reliability of the grid, not degrade it.
Great. That's all for me, Chair.
Thank you. And just to build on Councilmember Depp's question, that's 1 gigawatt over what amount of time?
So I think our goal is 2040. Is that right?
2040. Yeah.
Yeah. So by 2040.
So, but I guess I mean 1 gigawatt of energy like generated in the city every year?
Maybe I can jump in here and help clarify. So a gigawatt is just an instantaneous power rating.
Okay.
Like saying a light bulb is 60 watts.
Okay.
Right? The old light bulbs that we don't use anymore. So a gigawatt is just that. So across the city, you can think of it as all the solar installed on all the rooftops is at an instantaneous time producing a gigawatt. Typically that's at noon on the solstice. So it's the maximum amount, and that's just how it's rated. To put it in context, our load to serve all of San Jose Clean Energy is about a gigawatt at peak. So that's in the summer months. Obviously, that solar will not generate that amount at all hours of the day. It's going to generate that around noon. So that's why, as Carrie and Ken correctly stated, battery storage is going to be really important, as well as other technologies like wind that generate in the morning and the afternoon. Hydro is going to be part of the solution. So yeah, it's a very ambitious goal. It's great. It's going to definitely be part of the solution to how we transition to clean electricity.
Great, thank you. All right, so I'm looking for a motion to accept the report and also recommend it for full council consideration in an upcoming meeting.
So moved.
Thank you.
I'll second. This is
Second.
Councilmember Perez.
Great, thank you. And can we have the roll?
Esparza,
Yes.
Arenas, Arenas,
Yes.
Dieppe,
Aye.
Peralez,
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. That motion carries, and we will move on to our final item. It is San Jose Clean Energy Programs Roadmap. Lori, I think that's you.
Yes, thank you so much, Chair. So again, my name is Lori Mitchell. I'm the Director of Community Energy, and today I'm joined by Zach Strike. He's our Deputy Director of Account Management and Communications, as well as Marketing, and then Kevin Meehan, who is our Fuse Executive Advisor and our Programs Lead. So next slide. So first, I just wanted to give a quick update on San Jose Clean Energy. So since the last time we were at T&E in March, San Jose Clean Energy moved to working mostly remotely. Although our work has had to adjust, we've continued to make significant progress. So we've continued all operations except for, of course, in-person community meetings. We've continued to purchase power supply products to meet our customer needs. We've signed new renewable contracts, continued our customer service operations and call center. And then over the summer, we completed our integrated resource plan and submitted that to the CPUC for approval. We've also done a lot of work on PCIA advocacy, which I'll talk about in a moment, as well as completed all of our regulatory compliance obligations. In addition to all of that operational work, we have continued to make progress on our program's roadmap and held a stakeholder workshop, which Kevin will talk about in a moment. We've introduced new resiliency programs that include backup generation options, as well as a solar plus storage discount program. And then we've promoted and continued to educate on electric vehicle adoption. So next slide. So quickly, I want to talk a little bit about the PCIA and just to make sure everybody remembers what it is, a quick definition. So the PCIA is a utility fee that's charged to all CCA customers on a monthly basis. And it's meant to compensate PG&E for the above market portion of their energy portfolio. And it's done as more of their customers leave to take service from a CCA or other energy provider. So here in this example in the image, you can see on this bill that the PCIA was just under $20 a month. What's been very worrying to San Jose Clean Energy and CCAs across California is that the PCIA has rapidly risen. So just since our launch in 2018, it's set to double in 2021. So when we launched, a residential customer on average paid about $100 a month for the PCIA. Currently, they're paying about $160, and in 2021, we project that they're going to pay $220 annually. And then similarly, you can see the impact on small businesses as well as our large commercial customers. So next slide. So this graph is really important. It's got a lot of information on it, so I'll walk through it. But the blue bars show the PCIA rate over the last 7 years. So you can see in 7 years, it's already increased 600%, which is staggering. So back in 2013, when CCAs were first launching across the state, it was $4.42. I remember that, it doesn't seem that long ago. And this May, what the commission approved is a $31 PCIA. So it's a significant amount of growth. And then even more worrying, in 2021, it's expected to go to over $40 a megawatt hour, so almost a 900% increase. The yellow line is where energy markets have been over that same period. And what's worrying is that we don't see energy markets being unstable or coming down. So again, the PCI is meant to compensate the utilities for their market value for the resources in their portfolio that they can't sell at cost. So we don't see energy prices tumbling, as you might expect with this PCIA graph going up. You know, they have changed on average about 15% over the same 7 years. So that's what's very troubling, is that we don't see the market value of their excess resources declining. And so this is really what's driving a lot of our advocacy. And you know, one of the bills that we're pushing with Assembly Member Cholera to improve transparency related to the PCIA, to understand what are our customers paying for as these costs rise rapidly. So next slide. So this is the scenarios we have been running for 2021. As you can see, there's quite a bit of uncertainty for 2021, as there unfortunately typically is every fall, as we get limited information from PG&E about where the PCIA may go in the future. So what we presented here is 3 scenarios that we're working on. The best case is that the PCIA would go to $38 a megawatt hour. So that's if it just rises by the $5 cap that was mandated by the commission when they changed how the PCIA was calculated in 2018. If that happens, the revenue reduction to San Jose Clean Energy would be $20 million. The second option is what we are currently forecasting, because it's what PG&E has filed, is that the PCI would rise to $47. So it would be going above the capped rate. And that would result in a revenue reduction to San Jose Clean Energy of $56 million. And then finally, we've modeled a worst case, which hopefully does not go into effect, but it's really important for us to know, which is the PCA going to $56 a megawatt hour, which would be a $92 million revenue reduction to San Jose Clean Energy. And that would happen if PG&E is allowed to collect the full amount that there's an under-collected amount that's happening this year because of the caps rate. And so if they're able to collect that all back in 1 year instead of a longer amortization period, we could see a large spike in the PCIA. Some good news is that Cal CCA and all of the across Northern California are currently advocating that that under collection be collected over 3 years, so that we don't see this large spike and this increase in PCIA, particularly with COVID impacts. We think that's really important. So continuing to do a lot of advocacy at the CPUC around the amortization period, as well as around the transparency and making sure we understand what we're paying for as these PCIA rates rise. So next slide. So just quickly, different CCAs are taking different approaches to this uncertainty and the rising PCIA. So some CCAs have already set their rates slightly higher than PG&E. So both Marin Clean Energy and Sonoma Clean Power did this earlier in the year. They're just slightly higher. Customer bill impacts are about $3 to $6 for a residential customer. And they have maintained their renewable and their carbon-free content much higher than PG&E. Other CCAs have used reserves and plan to do that in the future. Some CCAs are also starting to benchmark on renewable content instead of carbon-free content. And this is because, as you may recall, when we brought the integrated resource plan to council, there's continued uncertainty about getting the PCIA resources in the utilities portfolio allocated to CCAs. So they have a lot of hydroelectricity, they have a lot of nuclear that our customers pay for in the PCIA, but do not get the benefits of that carbon-free content. So many CCAs have moved to just benchmarking on renewables instead of carbon-free because they are already paying for these carbon-free resources, and it's a cost-saving measure so that they don't need to go out and buy those resources again. And then finally, some CCAs have lowered their renewable and their carbon content. And again, this is a cost-saving strategy to remain competitive and financially stable. So we're still working on our strategy. We will come to council with a recommendation in November. We are likely to recommend using all options 2 through 4, but not option 1 at this time. We think it's really important to maintain at least parity and, if possible, some type of discount from PG&E, particularly during COVID when we know our customers are already very much struggling. Additionally, we're not recommending option 1 at this time because of our limited communication with our customers and the limitations of doing in-person and community meetings. But we are recommending that we will use a combination of 2 through 4, depending on the outcome of those scenarios I presented before, to ensure that San Jose Clean Energy remains financially stable. And I did just want to give a couple of benchmarks of where we are today in terms of our reserve. So by the end of the calendar year, we project our reserve to be over $50 million, and that's with repaying the city's commercial paper. If the PCI only goes up by the capped amount at the end of 2021, we'll still have a reserve of just under $50 million. But if the PCI goes up much further, if it's in the mid 40s, at the end of 2021, we'll still have a $20 million reserve, but we would have used much of that. And then, of course, if we see a huge spike in a PCI in the $50 per megawatt hour range, we may have to take additional steps in 2021 to remain financially stable. So, of course, this is an important issue. We're continuing to advocate with both all of our elected officials and Mayor Liccardo. He recently wrote an op-ed on it that got a lot of coverage. Many other elected officials joined on. So we plan to continue that advocacy both at the commission and in the legislature to get a better outcome. And we'll definitely continue to report out on the status of the PCI increase. So with that, next slide. So next, I will let Kevin Meehan give an overview of our program's outreach and our community outreach to date. So with that, I'll
Thank you, Lori.
Kevin.
Yep. Hello, council members. My name is Kevin Meehan. I'm the programs lead and Fuse executive advisor for the Community Energy Department. So in our previous update in March, we provided an initial introduction in the program's roadmap, including our program guiding principles, program areas, program selection framework, and community outreach done thus far. In this update, we will focus on what has changed since our last presentation in March. Before we do that, I'd like to call out that one of the key changes we made was to create the program's roadmap document, which you can find as an attachment to this report. The first update we will provide is on additional community and stakeholder engagement completed. In July, the Rocky Mountain Institute and the World Resources Institute, through resources provided by ACCC, helped us lead a two-part workshop to elicit feedback on the current program's roadmap draft. In this workshop that included around 20 different stakeholders, we covered topics including clean energy trends, proper metrics to use to evaluate equity, and feedback on SJC program ideas, as well as an exercise on which programs to prioritize in the future. The following is a list of workshop participants, which included regional agencies like the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, CCAs in the Bay Area like Peninsula Clean Energy, and key NGOs and nonprofits such as NRDC, Grid Alternatives, and the Green Lining Institute. Based off of the agenda topics I mentioned previously, some of the key takeaways included the importance of equity in environmental justice, along with electrification as a clean energy trend for the future. Evaluating equity through multiple aspects, including a program's impact on air quality, energy burden, and access by community members to the program, as well as overall funding that are allocated to disadvantaged community members. Fleet electrification and electrical panel upgrades surface as new program topics for SJC to explore. And finally, vehicle and building electrification programs were prioritized by participants during the program prioritization exercise. So next we will talk about updates in the near-term programs in the roadmap. So in the near term, meaning in the next 2 to 3 years, SJC will pursue the following programs that are either externally or co-funded by state agencies. For Cal EVIP, this program was a unique opportunity for the city to receive $10 million from the California Energy Commission based off of SJC investing $4 million. In the next slides, we will provide updates on each one of these programs. So the California Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Project, also known as Cal EVIP, which was approved by City Council 1 year ago, will start to receive applications on December 16th this year. In addition to the 25% of rebates that are directed towards low-income and disadvantaged communities, the program is also offering free technical assistance to properties located in these areas. Currently, SJC is conducting direct outreach to targeted properties, and Lori's reach out to your offices to collect properties in your district to direct our outreach efforts. So feel free to reach out to me directly with those properties. The following are 2 programs funded through the CPUC that SJC will be seeking City Council approval to apply for. Energy efficiency programs are funded through the Public Purpose Program Charge, which shows up on San Jose residents' electricity bill. SJC has engaged a consultant to support our application for this complex process, and we plan to file the advice letter in Q1 of next calendar year. Funding is still to be determined as it relies on a number of variables, but we expect funding to be in the range of $1 to $2.8 million annually. The Disadvantaged Community Green Tariff Program is a program also funded by the CPUC from proceeds from the state's cap and trade program, and will support the creation of a new solar site that will both provide around 500 low-income families with 100% renewable energy and provide them an additional 20% discount on their existing Clarifier discount. SJC will seek council approval in November to submit our advice letter to the CPUC by the end of 2020. In addition to the 3 near-term programs mentioned just now, SJC is also focused on the following list of education and outreach programs to get the word out on clean energy options for the community. I'll introduce the programs circled in red that are already underway. We've spoken about this quite a bit, so I won't take too much time, but as Ken and Ramses mentioned, we have done 3 virtual workshops thus far in Spanish and in English, and we have another one in Vietnamese. San Jose Clean Energy's role has been both to promote this program, but also do the presentation on electric vehicles. Just to note, the presentation from these events are on our website, and all the information both on electric vehicles, Drive Electric, and this program is on San Jose Clean Energy /EV. We are also working to promote 2 programs that provide backup power option for San Jose residents in the event of PG&E power shutoffs. The Bay Area SunShares program offers limited time discounts for San Jose residents to buy a new solar system, install a solar plus a battery storage system, retrofit of an existing solar system to include battery storage, or battery storage alone. Note that these discounts last until the end of November, and we are also actively promoting this program, and there's a series of webinars that are going on as well for residents to sign up for. Another program we are working to promote is in partnership with the Silicon Valley Independent Living Center, who offers a number of solutions for medical baseline customers that rely on life-sustaining medical devices. So these solutions for these customers might include rental of a portable battery system to power their critical medical devices, or other emergency resources such as vouchers to hotels if and when a PG&E power shutoff happens. The final updates we'd like to make is to provide in regards to the equity metrics as part of the program selection process, as well as on future programs. As part of one of the key takeaways from the RMI WIR Programs Roadmap Workshop, SJC has updated the list of potential metrics that will be used to evaluate a program's impact on equity. The idea is to look at equity through multiple lenses, including how many residents are we reaching, how much of the funding are we dedicated to them, and how much of a resident's energy burden or the amount they're spending on energy as a percentage of their income is being reduced. So for example, if we looked at a used electric vehicle program, what we would ask ourselves is that those used electric vehicles will bring down air pollutants by how much? How much will it actually save on the energy spend of low-income community members? So we're working through these, and the important part is to provide a menu of options to understand this issue from multiple angles. In our previous version of the program's roadmap memo, we presented a list of specific program ideas that could translate into future programs. Considering the significant changes that will happen in the market and the community over the next 2 to 5 years, before SJC can introduce self-funded programs, we decided instead to include a list of program topics in which future programs will center around. These are some of the program topics that our future programs will align with. We've also included a key takeaway from the RMI WIR workshop to include in our program topics fleet electrification, e-bikes, electrical panel upgrades, and low-income home retrofits. So to close, our recommendation is for the committee to accept this update on the SJC program's roadmap, and that concludes our presentation.
Thank you. We'll go to the member of the public first. I think it is Blair Beekman.
It is Blair Beekman. Hi. Thank you. Thank you for Lori Mitchell's report. I've been talking about how I've been attending, the ECB East Bay Community Energy. They have about 5 public meetings a month. And, I've been learning all the things there that Lori's explaining. She's singularly doing what these 5 public meetings do. She does a great job. You deferred the item 1B today, or 1A, B1, and that item, simply needed to be talked about. You made a specific effort to avoid talking about that publicly and then avoided allowing me to speak on it publicly as a deferment. You're going to have to review the deferment process, I think. And I think the mayor is totally fully for the idea that in a deferment time, the public should be allowed comment on it. And I wrote you a letter to describe exactly how the deferment process can work. So I hope you read my work on that and really consider how to review the deferment process. with a minute left, I have many things to talk about and I won't be able to fit them all here in today. Lori mentioned the PICA process. That's a really complicated process for everyone and it's not doing too great. And, that sort of transparency that they're asking for, that easily can take place at the local level. We can learn how to practice that at the local level more. And, that's important. We're deciding about the future of nuclear and not just nuclear for the next few years, but small nuclear plants and fission nuclear. So I think we have to make a real commitment how to step away from nuclear. And that takes a real commitment from us. And Leanne mentioned it, I really hope we can work on that. And with my final 20 seconds, there's transit ideas that are going around, not just mass transit, but public transit, where small pods of public transit can work. I hope we review that and we don't have to cut out mass transit ideas, which is the large buses, in order to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any members of any of my colleagues who would like to comment or ask questions? If not,
No questions or comment. I'll move approval.
Great, thank you.
Second.
Thank you. And I want to thank Lori and your team for the update. And I appreciate going into a little bit more depth about the workshops and letting us know that they're on the Clean Energy website and available. So thank you for that, Kevin. All right, roll.
Esparza,
Yes.
Arenas, Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Dieppe,
Aye.
Peralez,
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Thank you.
That motion carries, and we are on to open forum. One hand, Blair.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for the meeting today. Yeah, I can't stress enough the idea of, local community energy is a process of the future of our local community democracy, basically. It's really interesting work. We can decide together as a community how much nuclear we want in our future, how much renewables, how much of carbon, and how to define carbon-free policies. So, I tried to state earlier, there may be problems with what COVID was trying to develop for all of us and our social planning ideas for the future. That was on an international level. It's now up to us and our already good practices at the local level that we've been working on for years now about good ideas and sustainable ideas and healthy ideas that, we can really address, and I hope we can, and we will. And we have to consider how nuclear power is basically a brother. It's the best friend of what COVID-19 is working towards at this time. Mass social planning that can have levels of harm to mass numbers of people, basically, and they can live with that concept. We can develop a more sustainable world that doesn't have to rely on such models. And the work I do with open public policy ideas, it's totally meant towards that. It's asking how to end shock doctrine practices through better democracy of a community. And it's community sharing with each other and just, it naturally creates the idea that they don't want to hurt each other. And that's the sort of thing we have to work on and believe in and trust. And that's how we build our future of sustainability. And that asks a lot of questions at the international level at this time. And I hope we can do that. There's a democratization of the UN being asked about. Open public policies help with that. Thank you.
Thank you. This meeting is adjourned.